Our topic tonight is about Yeshua and Moshe, or Moses. And we will study the beginning of Matityahu 5, or Matthew 5. And before we do that, I would like to ask a question. Is the New Testament completely new? Is the New Covenant completely designed from scratch? Is the Messiah covenant cancelled? Is it abolished? Is it unnecessary? Actually, Matthew or Matityahu is going to answer our questions. And let us study a few interesting verses from Matthew chapter 5, and I hope we will enjoy them. But before we do that, I would like to highlight the preceding events. Number one, Yeshua escapes death thanks to the angel and his parents. Actually, Yeshua was a baby at the time when the king issued a decree in order to kill his potential competitor, and thanks to the angel who appeared to his father, and thanks to his parents, Yeshua miraculously escaped death. Then we read that Yeshua's parents, they go to Egypt. After that, Yeshua returned and got baptized. And after that, he went to the wilderness and he was tempted there. After the temptation, Yeshua preaches on the mountain. And this is Matthew chapter 5. I would like to read this text with you. Now, when Yeshua saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain. And after he sat down, his disciples came to him. We are interested in these words. Now, when Yeshua saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain. First of all, let's look at this mountain. The mountain is really beautiful. This is the place, actually. As you can see, now they built a church there. Now they have beautiful view with certain buildings. And sometimes people even come there and someone preaches exactly like Yeshua. So this is the place. And the mountain is a very important detail. Why? Let me show you why. In the Gospels, we see the mountain of temptation. Actually, devil took Yeshua and put him on the mountain, and he used the mountain to test Yeshua. Then we have the mountain of transfiguration, the mountain of the resurrection appearance. When Yeshua got resurrected, he appeared to his disciples again on the mountain. In the Tanakh, we also have the mountain as a very important symbol. First of all, the Mount Moriah, where Abraham was about to sacrifice his son. And probably you remember that the temple was built right there, the Mount Zion. And we also have something even more important. First of all, I would like to show you these two biblical verses, and I will try to read Greek and explain why we have those two verses on the screen. First of all, we have LX6. This is the Septuagint, and this translation, as you know, was likely accomplished 200 years before Yeshua came to this earth, and they started likely about 300 years before. And when we read about Moses, who went to the mountain, we read Moses anebe es to orus. Interesting. So this is how Jewish people, Jewish scholars who spoke also Greek, this is how they translated the Hebrew text. And then when you open Matthew chapter 5 verse 1, he, and it's assumed Yeshua, and then look at this, anebe es to oros. If you are not familiar with Greek, doesn't matter. You will see that these words are absolutely identical. So exactly as Moses went up to the mountain, exactly as Moses did that, probably likely the mountain was different, but actually Yeshua also went to the mountain. What did Moses get on the mountain? Obviously, he got the tablets with the law, the 10 commandments, the 10 words. And now Yeshua is pictured as the second Moses who goes up to the mountain. The mountain represents a key detail. It connects Matthew 5 with Moses, and the connection is very obvious and absolutely strong. It is amazing how strong the connection is. And when you compare Moses with Yeshua, you see that Moses escapes death. He was a baby. He was put where? Into the ark. And by God's miracle, he escaped death. Yeshua escapes death as well. He was a baby, and by God's grace, the angel was sent to his parents, and they escaped with Yeshua to Egypt. We remember that Moses dwells in Egypt, and Yeshua with his parents also go to Egypt, and Yeshua's parents go to Egypt and they dwell there. We also see that Moses divides the sea. So he approaches the sea and the sea is divided. Yeshua got baptized. He didn't divide the sea, he didn't divide the Jordan River, but he went into waters, and many commentators who read this verse, they see parallels. In addition to that, Moses goes into the wilderness and he encounters God there, and after the Exodus he also takes people to the wilderness, and we also see Yeshua who goes into the wilderness and he is tempted, he is tested there. So we see many details which connect Moses with Yeshua, and we see the main point. Moses brings the covenant, the tablets of the covenant. He brings literally the covenant from heavens. God gives his covenant to Moses, and Moses brings his covenant to the people. And you remember, you read this many times. He takes the blood, he reads the words of God's commandments, and actually we see that the blood establishes the covenant. And in order to be in the covenant of God, you have to be obedient and do commandments. Yeshua also brings the covenant. And if you remember, I asked a simple question. Are we talking about Moses' covenant, which is outdated, which is abolished? I would say no. We see Moses' covenant, the Messiah covenant, as a model of the covenant of Yeshua. And if you understand that Yeshua is pictured in Matthew chapter 2 as the one who is the second Moses, you will understand his covenant much better, way better. And now when Yeshua saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and we read, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. It was a very usual thing. Rabbis typically would teach sitting. They would sit and teach. And there is one more interesting thing. And he opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, I have a question. Why do we have this detail? Obviously, when you talk, you open your mouth, right? In order to speak, you always open your mouth. Why do we have this detail? It is a Semitic idiom. To open one's mouth and to start speaking means to speak or to address publicly. So in this case, we have something which is directed to the crowd, to people, to multitudes. This is something which is important to everybody. I would like to make this very strong accent. In Matthew chapter 5, Yeshua is pictured exactly as Moses. The question is, what is the practical value of that? Let me show you. The Messianic covenant is built upon the blood of the sacrifices, I mentioned this already, and the commandments. So you have the blood, you have the commandments. And then Yeshua is pictured as the new Moses or the new Moses. We see that the covenant of Yeshua is built like the covenant of Moses. Yeshua's covenant is built upon, number one, the blood of his sacrifice, and number two, the commandments. The commandments of Yeshua. What I mean? He will speak. Chapter 5, Matthew chapter 5. In a few seconds, he is going to speak, and we will study those commandments of Yeshua. I announced that. But actually, do you realize that Yeshua is pictured like Moses, and that the following commandments are a part of his covenant with us? Very often we hear these words, just believe and you will be saved. Yes, if you don't know him, you just believe, you get saved. But if you have more time, assumed you didn't die right away, you have to enter his covenant. And his covenant is built upon his sacrifice and his commandments, exactly as Moses received the covenant from the Lord and brought it to the people. The Torah contains 613 commandments, and as for Yeshua's commandments, I have 3 points, 3 questions. How many commandments can we find in the Gospels? You see, rabbis took time to count and they said we have 613 commandments. Ask any Christian, how many commandments do we have in the Gospel? When, for example, Yeshua says, forgive, or if he says, do this or do that, do we perceive this as a part of our covenant with him, or just as a polite advice? We have to understand that here we deal with his commandments, which represent the covenant with him. Should not we have at least an outline of his commandments? At least a general idea? Should not we understand the nature of the new covenant better? Yeshua is pictured, like I said, as the new Moses. Now it's time to study commandments of Yeshua, who says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments.